Hi all, welcome to today's session. Today we are going to discuss McFlecknoe lines 150 to 217. The links to the previous video sessions are available in the description box. McFlecknoe lines 150 to 217. So Flecknoe hopes his son to emerge in new ignorance and impudence. Yet still thy fools shall stand in thy defense and justify their author's want of sense. Flecknoe hopes his son to emerge impudent as well as ignorant by penning the works with no traces of wit in it. And he says that those idiotic characters of Shadwell's own plays shall justify his want of sense. So your characters shall justify your want of sense. Here, Dryden ironically comments on Shadwell's lack of sense. Actually, by the phrase want of sense, Dryden means it is the lack of sense or ignorance. Let them be all by thy own model made of dullness and desire no foreign aid, that they to future ages may be known, not copies drawn, but issue of thy own. Here Flecknoe considers Shadwell as a role model, who others should try to imitate. Here role model means the model in the case of dullness. Any dull poets or any dull writers like Shadwell can consider him as a model. And if they imitate you, they shall be known to future ages too. They shall become famous as a dull poet like Shadwell. So that is why Flecknoe says that the others who are trying to produce dull works like Shadwell should imitate Shadwell in his dullness. So let them imitate his son. The only difference between them and Shadwell is in their names. Whatever be their names, they produce dull poetry or dull works like Shadwell. Nay, let thy men of wit too be the same, and full of thee, and suffering but in name, but let no alien sadly interpose. So let others imitate Shadwell. There is no problem in that. But here Flecknoe advises Shadwell that you have to be much more careful, that you should not allow anybody to incorporate wit into your works, which already lacks wit. Here there is a reference to Sedley. Sedley is Sir Charles Sedley, who was an English playwright who wrote a prologue for Shadwell's own 1673 play Epsom Wells. And the prologue was considered to be a brilliant piece of work when compared to the original text written by Shadwell. In short, the prologue was much more brilliant, or it contained much more traces of wit when we compare it to the original text. So here, Flecknoe is advising Shadwell never to commit that mistake again by allowing others to incorporate wit into your works. So such practices may turn an impediment to your way to dullness. So never allow anybody to incorporate wit into your works, just like you made Sedley to write a prologue for your Epsom Wells. And when false flowers of rhetoric thou wouldst cull, trust nature, do not labor to be dull, but write thy best and top, and in each line's a formal's ratery will be thine. So, Flecknoe says that you need not work hard to maintain your dullness. You need not put in much effort to maintain your ignorance. You just try to be yourself. You trust in your nature. Here, trust nature means you trust in your dull nature. And do not labor to be dull. Do not strive hard to be dull, to maintain your dullness. But write thy best and top, and in each line represent your own dullness. You just be your own dull self and trust your own natural instincts. And he also advises him not to imitate the false flowers of rhetoric and start believing in your dull self, or in case of inspiration, the need of inspiration, you can imitate your own characters like Sir Formal. Sir Formal, he was a character in Shadwell's The Virtuoso. He was a snobbish, idiotic character, famous for his haughty speeches. So here, Dryden is actually making fun of Shadwell's characters as well as their creator, their author, Shadwell as well. So your own characters like Sir Formal represent your ignorance. So they shall come in defense of your wit. So they shall come in defense of your lack in wisdom. And also be careful that you should not imitate false flowers of rhetoric. Here, false flowers of rhetoric is an indirect reference to Shadwell's imitation of the literary style of Ben Jonson. Sir Formal, though unsought attends thy quill, and does thy northern dedications fill, nor let false friends seduce thy mind to fame. By arrogating Jonson's hostile name, let Father Flecknoe fire thy mind with praise, and Uncle Ogleby thy envy raise. So Sir Formal is an example of your dim-wittedness, or Sir Formal is a representative of your own ignorance. There is one more testimony of your ignorance, that is your northern dedications. And Dryden here also ironically comments on Shadwell's northern dedications. Northern dedications, that is a reference to Shadwell's practice of often dedicating his works to the Duke and Duchess of Newcastle, located in the northern part of the country. He did it deliberately in order to please them. So Dryden's northern dedications are also an example of his absurdity or dullness. Flecknoe advises Shadwell, who was a great admirer of Ben Jonson, not to imitate his literary style. And here, Flecknoe accuses his son Shadwell of arrogating. Arrogating means illegally claiming. So here, Flecknoe accuses Shadwell of arrogating Ben Jonson's legacy. He says that you are unnecessarily following the literary pattern or the literary style or imitating the literary style of Ben Jonson. You need not do that. So if you are in the dire need of inspiration, you can look forward to your own father Flecknoe, or even there is Uncle Ogleby. Ogleby reference to a minor poet, or which we mentioned in the previous video sessions. Here Flecknoe also advises Shadwell not to get seduced by fame. You can look for inspiration on Father Flecknoe and Uncle Ogleby. Here Dryden makes an ironical comment on Shadwell's dull poetry by placing Ogleby's pedestrian poetry over Shadwell's dull poetry. He considers Ogleby's pedestrian poetry even superior to Shadwell's works. Thou art my blood where Jonson has no part, what share have we in nature or in art? Flecknoe also asks Shadwell to remember that he is of Flecknoe's bet. Flecknoe also asks Shadwell to remember that he is of Flecknoe's blood and Jonson has no part in it. You are my son, not the son of Ben Jonson. You have to follow my legacy and not that of Jonson's. So ourselves being the representatives of dull poetry, what is the need of focusing in nature and art? So we don't need to be interested in nature and art. Let superior poets or superior writers draw themes from nature as well as art. But ourselves being the representatives of dull poetry, we need not turn towards nature or art for inspiration. Flecknoe says that Jonson is a superior writer. He doesn't produce farces like Psyche, nor he does create characters like Prince Nicander. Here the reference of Prince Nicander is a character in Psyche. Thou art my blood where Jonson has no part, what share have we in nature or in art? Where did his wit and learning fix a brand, and rail at arts he did not understand? Where made he love in Prince Nicander's vein, or swept the dust in Psyche's humble strain? So Flecknoe is asking Shadwell, can you spot a single instance where Jonson has deviated from wit? He cannot, because he belongs to the category of superior writers. So never think that Jonson shall deviate from wit, or he shall produce characters like Prince Nicander, or he shall produce works like Psyche. These kind of characters and works can only be produced by a dull poet like Shadwell. So never ever try to imitate Ben Jonson. He is far beyond your reach. So there is no need to imitate the false flowers of rhetoric. Here you can see that the use of phrases like whip stitch, kiss my arse. Here whip stitch and kiss my arse are phrases used by Shadwell's mediocre characters. They are not considered to be standard English idioms or catchphrases. So here we also get an idea on the language used by, or the diction used by, the characters of Shadwell's works. That is yet another example of Shadwell's dullness or ignorance. So in short, Dryden says that Shadwell's plays lack solid substances and they are mere farces. Farce means low quality comedy. When did his muse from Fletcher scenes purloin, as thou whole Etheridge dust transfused to thine, but so transfused as oil on waters flow, his always floods above, and thine sings below. Here Dryden says that even he considers the comic playwrights Fletcher and George Etheridge far superior to Shadwell. He compares them to the substance that float on oily water, while Flecknoe compares Shadwell to an object that sinks. In short, Flecknoe says that while playwrights like Fletcher and George Etheridge managed to float, Shadwell literally sank. So when did his muse from Fletcher scenes purloin, as though whole Etheridge dust transfused to thine, but so transfused as oil on waters flow, his always floats above, thine sings below. And this is thy province. This is thy wondrous way, new humours to invent for each new play. And this is that boasted bias of the mind, by which one way to dullness it is inclined. So you need not be worried, for this is your area, this is your province, and this is your own customary style. You only need to be yourself, or your own dull self. Here there is a reference of new humours. That is, Shadwell wrote on the epilogue to the Humorist by Jonson, Ben Jonson. He wrote a line, a humour is a bias of the mind, he wrote. A humour is a bias of the mind. And Flecknoe says that you need not be worried, for it is full of dullness. Flecknoe also adds that one needs no humour to be dull, or need to invent another humour to write dull plays. We know that Ben Jonson famously pioneered the new genre comedy of humours, based on the ancient Greek theory of medicine that says human body was made up of 4 humours mainly, which contributed to the well-being and temperament. So there are mainly 4 humours, each constituting the well-being and temperament of a human being. And here Flecknoe says that Shadwell needs not to be worried regarding that thing, because you are writing dull plays, and these 4 humours are not enough to write a dull play. You need to invent another humour for composing dull poems as well as dull plays. Nor let thy mountain belly make pretence of likeness. Thine is a tympany of sense. A ton of man in thy large bulk is rich, but sure thou art but a kilderkin of wit. Here Flecknoe says that one need not get confused with the mountain belly of Shadwell, or one need not get surprised with the similarity between Shadwell and Ben Jonson in the case of their fat bellies. We know both Shadwell and Jonson had a mountain belly or a fat belly. Though their bellies are comparable, their writings are never. Flecknoe says that thine is a tympany of sense. Tympany means swelling. Flecknoe says that a fat belly is not a measure for wit. So here Flecknoe says that, advises the readers that never arrive at a conclusion that both Ben Jonson and Shadwell has a fat belly. So their writings are also of the same level or standard. So never get deceived by Shadwell's fat belly or mountain belly, it is a tympany of dullness and nothing else. And he says that a ton of man in thy large bulk is rich. Ben Jonson's fat belly is a tympany of sense, while your fat belly is a tympany of dullness. Ben Jonson has produced a ton of great literary works, but you haven't even produced a kilderkin of wit in your works. A ton means huge. A kilderkin means a quarter of a ton. So Flecknoe says that Jonson has produced a ton of sensible works, but Shadwell hasn't even produced a quarter of sensible plays. So in short, Flecknoe says that Shadwell may be a man of huge belly, but his writings are hollow. When he tries to be dramatic, it makes his audience laugh. And when he tries to be funny, it puts the audience to sleep. Thy tragic muse gives smiles, thy comic sleep. That means when Shadwell tries to be dramatic, it makes his audience laugh. And when Shadwell tries to be funny, it puts his audience to sleep. Thy tragic muse gives smiles, thy comic sleep. With whatever gall thou settlest thyself to write, thy inoffensive satires never bite. Also, he says that Shadwell's satires lack punch. It won't sting, even though his heart may contain venom. Thy inoffensive satires never bite. In thy felonious heart, though venom lies, it does but touch thy Irish pen and dies. In thy felonious heart, in your crooked heart, though venom lies, venom means poison. Even though Shadwell's heart may contain venom, it dies the moment it touches his Irish pen. That means, though Shadwell has magnificent ideas in his head, they will die when he tries to manifest them. In short, Dryden says that Shadwell lacks the power, or Shadwell lacks the craft or art of writing successful satires. That is why he has deliberately used the adjective inoffensive satires that never bite. That means one cannot even feel that it is a satire. But here Flecknoe says that you need not worry, nor let thy mountain belly make pretence of lightness. But here Flecknoe says that Shadwell need not worry, for Shadwell's genius doesn't lie in his satires. Your glory doesn't lie in your keen iambs, but mild anagram. Here iambs reference to satire. In classical tradition, commonly written in iambs. Even Dryden wrote in iambs. Even this mock heroic is written in iamb. So Flecknoe says that Shadwell's genius doesn't lie in his satires, but in his anagrams. An anagram, it is a rearrangement of letters in a word, or the formation of a word or phrase or name by rearranging the letters of another word. That means a new word is formed by rearranging the letters in a particular word. For example, from the word funeral, we can just rearrange the word funeral, and from that, by rearranging it, we can get two new words from that, real fun. Just like that, we get a gentleman. From a gentleman, by rearranging it, we get elegant man. Same as with listen to, listen. From listen, we can get silent. So that is an example of anagram. So here, Flecknoe says that your fame or your glory is not dependent on your iambs, but in your mild anagram. Leave writing place and choose for thy command some peaceful province in acrostic land. There thou mayest wing display and altars raise, and torture one poor word 10,000 ways. So your real glory lies in your anagrams. By writing anagrams or constructing anagrams, you are torturing one poor word at 10,000 ways. Here Dryden also criticizes the common practice in 17th century writings. We know that 17th century writings were full of these anagrams and acrostics. For these were considered by critics as false wit or exhibition of unreal intelligence. So Flecknoe accuses Shadwell here of writing meanly in this manner. So Flecknoe advises Shadwell, instead of torturing a poor word 1,000 ways, you just go and devote yourself to acrostic poetry. Now an acrostic, it is a poem in which the first letters of each line is spelled out for the formation of a new word or a message. So the father Flecknoe is advising Shadwell not to go behind these false practices of employing anagrams, of producing satires. Instead, you can devote yourself to acrostic poetry. Or if the woods thy different talents suit, set thy own songs and sing them to thy lute. If that too is not good for you, just go and compose songs and sing them with the accompaniment of a lyre. So Flecknoe says that if that too doesn't fetch you any good, go and compose songs and sing them with the accompaniment of musical instruments. Here we have the reference to the age-old practice in ancient Greece, where great authors like Homer's epics would often be sung by the accompaniment of a lyre or musical instruments. So just like that, Flecknoe says that you go and compose your own songs and just sing them to the accompaniment of musical instruments, for it may fetch you much more satisfaction. Or if thou wouldst thy different talents suit, set thy own songs and sing them to thy lute. And he said, but his last words were scarcely heard. But these words of Flecknoe was hardly heard, for Flecknoe disappears through a trap door. It was the mischievous prank of Bruce and Longville, two characters in Shadwell's own play The Virtuoso. While Shadwell uttered these words, it was hardly heard, for it was hindered by a trap prepared by the characters called Bruce and Longville. We come to know that Flecknoe disappears into a trap planned by Bruce and Longville, and he sinks down. This is also a reference to a scene in the play The Virtuoso. In the play The Virtuoso 2, they pull a trap door, both this Bruce and Longville, these two characters, they pull a trap door to dismiss a foolish character named Sir Formal Trifle. We came across the reference of Sir Formal Trifle. He was a snobbish character known for his haughty speeches. So these two characters from the play The Virtuoso, they pull a trap door to dismiss the foolish character Formal Trifle in the middle of one of his absurd speeches. Just like that, here Flecknoe is also dismissed. In the same manner, they dismissed Sir Formal Trifle. For Bruce and Longville had a trap prepared, and down they sent the yet declaiming bard. The yet declaiming bard here reference to Flecknoe. Bard means poet. Sinking he left his drugget robe behind, borne upwards by a subterranean wind, the mantle fell to the young prophet's part with double portion of his father's art. But while he was sinking down, it happened so that he left his drugget robe, his mantle, his robe. Drugget here means a woolen robe. So as Flecknoe sinks down, he leaves his robe behind, and with the rise of a subterranean wind, it settles on his son Shadwell's shoulders, who possessed double the dullness of his father. The mantle fell to the young prophet's part with double portion of his father's art. So here Dryden concludes the satire with an implied biblical allusion to the story of Elia. In the story of Elia, we know Elia was, according to the books of Kings in the Hebrew Bible, a prophet and a miracle worker who lived in the northern kingdom of Israel. And he had an ardent disciple named Elisha. It is believed that Elisha picked up the elder prophet's mantle after departing to heaven in a whirlwind. The elder prophet, he disappeared in a whirlwind and he departed to heaven. So at that moment, it is being believed that the disciple Elisha, he picked up the elder prophet's mantle. And we know that it is from here the expression to take up the mantle originated, from this story. So taking up mantle here means taking up the position. So here we know that by taking up the mantle of Flecknoe, here Shadwell has taken up the kingdom of dullness. So thus ends the coronation of Shadwell, with Shadwell as the new king of the imaginary kingdom of dullness. So thank you for listening and watching.